Okay, this is the second part of my culture shock presentation, and I am Peyton Pritchard. The countries I decided to go over in this presentation are Ireland, Britain, Japan, and Germany. For the first presentation, I decided to go over countries that we are currently in conflict with. I thought that was an interesting assignment because it gave me an opportunity to delve into the cultures of countries that don't really like us very much, and it turns out that culture is actually one of the main reasons they didn't like us. But for this assignment, I decided to go into these countries because they're countries that I would actually be interested in traveling to. In fact, I've actually been to Germany, so I've experienced some of the differences in that culture firsthand. The first country was Ireland. Ireland is actually pretty similar to America when it comes to culture, especially in their patriotism. Most Irish citizens are just as proud of their culture as America is proud of ours. So when you see Americans who go abroad who often boast about how awesome America is, at times to a fault where it seems like they're talking down about the country they're actually visiting, that doesn't go over too well in Ireland. So that should be avoided if you plan on visiting. Public displays of affection are actually accepted generally a lot less than they are in America. Sometimes when you go to malls or sporting events, you'll see two people that like each other letting everybody else around them know that they like each other as well, where in Ireland that's generally not accepted and is considered rude to the people who you may be standing around. So that should be avoided as well. One similarity between the cultures is the idea that when you visit someone's house you should bring something or at least not come empty-handed. The Irish agree with that too. In fact, it's actually said that where, at least in our age, sometimes you'll go to a house and you won't have anything, so you'll offer money to the host to pay for maybe some food or drink or something, but in Ireland, if you do that, that's also considered very rude, and it's better just to show up empty-handed. England, there was a lot of similarities there here as well, obviously, since we came from the English, but there's differences too, like, for instance, how they deal with accidents in the street. Like, if you're walking and someone who's not paying attention happens to run into you in places like New York or the bigger cities of America, it's not really all that uncommon to see confrontation take place, but in England they frown upon that. So if you were visiting and you started to create a confrontation with someone who ran into you, they would probably see that as an overreaction, so that might not be all that great. Similar to America, the British don't really have a concrete idea of time, so it's not uncommon for Brits to show up 10 to 15 minutes late, and you shouldn't be offended when that happens. In fact, if you show up early, you're likely to be met with some case of alarm. They'll probably ask you if anything's wrong, so while it's not that big of a deal to show up early, it's also not that big of a deal to show up late. Japan is a culture that's really exploded in popularity in our country, so I found it very interesting to know all the differences that exist between America and Japan. I figured that a lot of people will be wanting to travel to Japan someday, so I think it's important that we know these differences and understand them. Conformity is the norm. American children are generally taught that to stand out is a good thing, but it's not really accepted the same way in Japan. Japan teaches their children that their accomplishments should speak by themselves, and they really shouldn't spend that much time drawing attention to each other. So if you're visiting and you're walking down the street and you're wearing flashy things and drawing attention to yourself, you'll probably be met with weird glances and be treated as an outsider. Also, it's not uncommon for tourists to report being stared at for extended periods of time in subways and restaurants. Generally, this is not done to offend people, it's just part of their culture, and it's not really considered rude to, so if someone is staring at you, it's not necessary to think that they're trying to incite anything. They're probably just curious as to your presence there. Germany, this is the one country that I actually visited on this list, and the cultural differences here are numerous as well. For one, Germans follow the rules to a T. Where in America, sometimes we get a little bit lax when we follow certain laws. For instance, jaywalking in Germany is, if you were to walk across the street without a stop sign or anything, you'd probably be chastised by the people walking down the sidewalk because they just don't do stuff like that there. Part of the reason for their rigidity in the rules is the fact that they have all those people confined to a country about the size of a couple of counties in Texas, so rules are very important to keeping the peace in Germany. Also, they practically have no business on Sunday. The only places I could really think about in America that fall under this is places like Chick-fil-A, and really that was the only one. But in Germany, you better have all your shopping done by Saturday because on Sunday there may not be anywhere to get anything that you might need. if you were visiting. In closing, I really enjoyed both parts of this assignment. The first part, like I said, taught me that cultures is oftentimes the root of conflict in our world. But the second one really, I thought, was informative in that if I ever plan on visiting these countries, I'll have a few tips as to what not to do or what to do in the case that I wouldn't offend someone. So really, I think this project was very informative and helped me learn a lot. And I look forward to seeing the rest of them.